All right, let's talk about something we've all been through. If you've ever worked on a team you really care about, you know that conflict isn't just a possibility, it's a guarantee, right? When people are passionate, you're gonna get some friction.
So, look, the goal here isn't to build some kind of utopia where everyone holds hands and agrees all the time. That's not realistic. The real game changer, the thing that makes great teams great, is figuring out how to handle that friction. It's about turning those sparks into fuel, not into a fire that burns everything down.
So that's the million-dollar question, right? How do you take something that feels so destructive and actually make it constructive? How do you turn it into a catalyst for growth? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. We're going to look at the playbook. All right, first up, know your conflict style. You see, before you can even think about navigating a conflict with someone else, you have to understand yourself. You need a map of your own tendencies. What's your go-to move when things get tense? And that's where a really useful framework called the Thomas Kilmann model comes into play.
So check this out. It's actually pretty simple. Imagine a chart. On one axis, going up and down, you've got assertiveness. That's basically how much you push for your own needs. And on the other axis, going side to side, you have cooperativeness. That's how much you focus on the other person's needs. And depending on where you naturally fall on this grid, well, that reveals your default conflict style.
And this model breaks it down into 5 key styles. You've got competing, which is all about I win, you lose. Then there's accommodating, the complete opposite. You win, I lose. You've got avoiding, where, let's be honest, nobody really wins. Then there's compromising, which sounds good, but it's often more like we both lose a little. And then there's the gold standard, collaborating. That's where we work together to find a true win-win.
And this is a really important distinction. A lot of us think compromising is the best we can do. But think about it. Compromising is just splitting the pie. Everybody walks away a little bit unhappy. Collaboration is totally different. It's not about splitting the pie, it's about making the pie bigger. It's a mindset shift from scarcity to abundance, and it changes the entire game.
Okay, so this is all great in theory, right? But what does it actually look like in the real world? Let's take a look at a couple of places that are absolute masters of this: Pixar and Google. These are some of the most innovative companies out there, and they've got some serious lessons to teach us. Let's start with Pixar. You know, the geniuses behind Toy Story, Up, Inside Out. They don't just hope for good creative conflict, they engineer it. They have this thing called the Brain Trust. It's a meeting where a group of their top creative minds watch a movie that's in progress, and their entire job is to be brutally honest about what's not working. They basically tear it down to build it back up better. Now, you might be thinking, how does that not just devolve into chaos and hurt feelings? Well, they have 2 genius, non-negotiable rules. Rule number 1 is called plussing. It means you can't just say, this stinks. You have to add something constructive. You have to plus the idea. And rule number 2, which is absolutely critical, is that you always critique the work, not the person. The feedback is about the movie, period. It's never a personal attack. So in practice, it sounds something like this. Instead of saying, that scene is boring, you'd say, you know, I really like how you set up the character here, and what if we added a ticking clock to ramp up the tension? See that? It's a totally different energy. It's about building, not just breaking.
And what Pixar has done with their Brain Trust, it's a perfect illustration of this incredibly powerful concept called psychological safety. What is that? It's the shared belief on a team that it is safe to be vulnerable. It means you can speak up, you can share a crazy idea, you can question the status quo, you can even admit you messed up, all without the fear of being humiliated or punished for it. And this isn't just some fluffy, feel-good idea. Google literally spent years and millions of dollars on a huge study they called Project Aristotle, trying to figure out the secret to building the perfect team. And you know what they found? The #1 most important predictor of a team's success wasn't who was on the team or how smart they were. It was psychological safety. That was the magic ingredient. All right, so we've seen the big picture from companies like Pixar and Google, but let's bring it down to a personal level. How can you use this in your day-to-day conversations? How do you make your one-on-ones more constructive? Let's get tactical. Okay, here's the secret. You have to learn to separate the what from the why. We get so stuck on our positions. That's the what I want. But underneath every position is an interest. That's the why I want it. For example, your position might be, I need this report by 5 p.m. sharp. But your interest, the real reason, might be, I have a big presentation tomorrow and I'm terrified of looking unprepared. Once you get to the why, the whole conversation changes. Suddenly, you're not fighting anymore. You're problem solving together.
So, what's the best way to talk about your own needs, your own interests, without making the other person immediately throw up their defenses? It's a surprisingly simple but powerful tool, the I statement. Seriously, this little linguistic trick can change everything.
Just look at the difference. A you statement sounds like an attack. You always miss your deadlines. What's the first thing someone's going to do when they hear that? Get defensive, right? But now, flip it to an I statement. I feel really stressed when the reports aren't on time. See? That's not an accusation. It's you sharing your experience. And nobody can argue with how you feel. It opens the door for a real conversation instead of slamming it shut.
And the perfect I statement has a simple formula. It goes like this. I feel, you name the emotion, when you describe the specific observable behavior, because, and then you explain the impact it has on you. So putting it all together, I feel stressed when the reports aren't ready on time because it affects our team's performance. Boom. That's a statement you can build on. So now let's pull it all back and connect the dots. We've talked about understanding your own style with the Thomas Kilmann model, about giving feedback like they do at Pixar with plussing, and about using I statements. These aren't just a random collection of tips. They're all different paths leading to the same destination, building that foundation of psychological safety. So here it is, your constructive conflict checklist. Think of it as your playbook. You've got the TKI matrix to help you choose the right approach for any given situation. You've got plussing, straight from Pixar, to help you critique the work without crushing the person. And you have I statements to own your feelings without starting a fight. And all of this, every single one of these tools, helps you build that all-important psychological safety, the secret sauce that Google discovered. All right, to wrap this all up, I want to leave you with a challenge. Think about your week ahead. Is there a conversation you've been putting off, maybe a difficult one you know you need to have? I want you to ask yourself, what's one thing from this playbook that you can try? How can you approach that conversation just a little bit differently? Because even one small change can be enough to turn a destructive argument into a constructive breakthrough.